Well, for the millions caught up in the Optus hack, it's been a week of uncertainty. But for our next guest, it's deja vu. Charmaine Proudlock says the telco failed to protect her personal information once before. She joins us now in Tamborine in Queensland. Now, Charmaine, thanks for your time this morning. Appreciate it. I'm sorry you're going through all this. How are you faring?
Yeah, pretty good, Carl. It's more about the older people than me, really. Like, if it's happened twice to me and it's happening to people that haven't even been with Optus, so many questions that need to be answered.
They're not being answered. The company's not answering people. I mean, this is it's an absolute shutdown of communication,
status,
right?
Which is...
Go on.
Yep, exactly. Like, how dare they? They've got the audacity to play like they're the victim. No, they're not the victim. They're the soft target. This has happened before. It should have been fixed. Why hasn't it been fixed? The money that they make in profits from customers, put it to use. Make sure that our information's being protected.
Okay.
We don't ask for too much. Like, we're paying them monthly, daily, weekly. It's ridiculous, Carl. Something needs to be done, and it needs to be done now.
So you were hacked 10 years ago. What happened? How was it different then?
It wasn't different. It was exactly the same. Same spiel. We'll give you 12 months cover, blah, blah. I had an account with Optus. They made the promise to clear the debt. I then go for a loan with the bank some years later to be told I have a bad credit rating due to Optus. How ironic.
You're pretty ticked off about them, aren't you?
Oh, mate, I'm livid. I'm livid. Once is enough, twice, what they say, once bitten, twice shy.
Some people out there are going to go, well, hang on a second. Why didn't you just leave, Charmaine, like 10 years ago? I mean, you gave them a chance.
Because I live rurally.
Yeah.
I live rurally, and it comes down to coverage, Carl. Not everybody covers us out here. Something happens to me, I need to be able to get on a phone, so I do pay week to week, $10 if they're lucky. Some weeks I don't even pay the money, it's just I've got the phone number, I've got the phone. Simplicity.
Have you had any correspondence with them?
I've got one bodgy-generated text that told me that my name, phone number, email, blah, blah, had all been exposed. Again, same. I'm sick of hearing it. No humans actually rung me and apologised. No humans actually rung me to have a conversation. Like, not good enough. Seriously, not good enough.
Bearing in mind it's breakfast television, Charmaine, what would you say if you had the opportunity to speak to the CEO?
What the actual...
I got you. All right, Charmaine, thank you. I'm sorry you're going through this. It's causing you a lot of angst, a lot of anger, and you're not alone. Appreciate your time.
Mate.
Let's bring in cybersecurity expert now and former White House Chief Information Officer for George W. Bush, Theresa Payton. She joins us now. Thank you for your time this morning. Look, the FBI has been brought in. Do you think they'll catch this hacker?
It's very likely that they will be able to catch the hacker. The question is, what country does the hacker reside in? Will they ever see the inside of a jail if they are convicted and tried of this crime?
The hacker deleted the data, or so we're led to believe. Do you believe that? And the horse has already bolted for so many Australians. How can we be assured that more isn't going to be leaked?
Well, we're dealing with a criminal here, so, you can't believe anything this particular criminal says. It's hard to know. Are we dealing with a juvenile delinquent who did this and their parents caught them and said, you better stop? I mean, it's sort of I changed my mind, I'm so sorry, is kind of strange and not a typical criminal behavior. But who really knows what the truth is here? Optus is going to have to do an investigation. My piece of advice for Charmaine and other victims who have been impacted by this is consider getting new email accounts, consider contacting your banks yourself. Don't wait for somebody to do it for you. Ask what different types of protections can be put into place and set up all different types of alerts on your credit account as well as on your bank account. So if you see anything strange happening, you'll be alerted and be the first to know.
That's good advice. Our government wants an independent agency to transfer sensitive data between Optus and our banks to protect this personal data. What else should have been in place for the company? The mind boggles as to why this stuff wasn't in place before.
Well, for starters, one of the things that I would expect any telco to do, because they should know, telecommunication companies should know, based on past experience, they will be a target, and hackers, unethical hackers and cyber criminals will always find a way in. So if you assume that you're going to be compromised, you take customer data and you encrypt it in such a way that if it's stolen, it's virtually unusable because it's unreadable because it's encrypted. And so the question I would be asking if I were your country's regulators of this telco is why weren't you encrypting sensitive customer data? What happened? It should have been rendered completely useless by the hackers. It shouldn't be available to be able to post online. The second thing is, are they hiring an outside firm to ethically hack them on a periodic basis to tell them, if I were a cyber criminal, this is how I would get in, and here's how you need to lock the door. So those would be the first two questions I would ask, amongst many.
They're really good questions. A good first two, but there are many, you're right. Thanks for your time today. Appreciate it.
Let's bring in Optus customer Melissa Berry and Today tech expert Trevor Long. Now, Melissa, you said to us earlier that it took you a while to find out your data had been stolen.
Yes, it took me a while because my biggest thought was, why am I getting hacked through my Gmail? And it didn't start with my Gmail. It started with my actual Optus company itself. Like, it took them 12 months to admit that there were tower upgrades in the area, and it was very frustrating for me. So I'm wondering if they haven't admitted on time whether the initial data breach, this could span a year ago, because after 2017, I noticed that whenever I would talk to someone, that there would be another voice, or it sounded like an alienated voice in the background, or it would be like this male voice, so to speak. And my experience with Optus has been poor from the very beginning. Constant Wi-Fi dropouts. Even Wi-Fi service is lacked in this area itself.
Wow.
I've even been to my local Optus shop who say that, look, this isn't your fault, because every time I explained to them my phone was going from SOS to no service. This company clearly did not admit that there was a tower outage, and then I would swear in this area there's been at least around about like over 10 upgrades. And
wow. Hey, Melissa, you have a question for Trevor. What would you like to know? How can we help?
My question to you is, how can I better protect my technological devices moving forward? Because I've got a business, a small business to protect, as well as everything else. So I just want to make sure what I can do moving forward.
Look, I think it's a great question, and it's actually one we haven't addressed yet, which is just general protection going forward. We've talked years ago about antivirus. It's now called internet security. Internet security software these days does have identity protection built in, which is a great thing to let you know whether you've been a victim of any sort of hack, because you've got to remember, Optus is not the first company to be hacked. So a lot of people would be surprised to know their email addresses have been exposed well before the Optus hack. So I would strongly encourage identity protection within your internet security. It's going to cost you $100 a year in a subscription to something like Trend Micro, but it's going to give you the peace of mind of knowing when your data has been hacked.
You know, a former White House expert was on a little bit earlier, advisor, and she said she couldn't believe that this, all this, our private information wasn't encrypted. I mean, that sounds like it should have been a walk-up start.
It sounds like a no-brainer.
Yeah, exactly. Trevor, so many viewers have written in with other questions. Let's get to those. Carol Sheldon asks, if Optus contacts you via text, email or even phone call, how do you ascertain it's really them?
It's a great question, Carol. And the most important thing is, if it says it's Optus and it has a link in the text or email, do not click the link, because Optus will not include a link in their emails or texts. And that's the biggest problem they've got in communication is, if they send out a text message to everyone with a link in it saying, here's the information, scammers will do the same thing and trick people. So never click a link in an email or a text message, especially from Optus right now.
Wow.
It's mass confusion. Derek has asked, why does a phone company need so much information anyway? I think a lot of us have asked that. Why do they need passport details?
Yeah, Derek, it's a good question, and we all handed them over when we signed up for mobile phones. So when you sign up for a new plan, you need to prove who you are, and that's an Australian government requirement, which I think is great. It means we know who's using the phones. Why do they keep the information is the big question. So it's okay to get the information and prove who we are. Why are they keeping the information? And most importantly, if they're required by law to, should that law change? Okay. And should it be that they encrypt that information?
For sure. One more question, because we're running out of time. Victoria says she's still waiting to get any information from Optus at all. What should she do?
Look, unfortunately, the only thing you can do is join the queue, either on the phone or on the My Optus app through the chat, because Optus has contacted the worst affected people with their driver's licences already, but they're still contacting other customers. Last night, Carl, was the first time I know Optus admitted it was 9.8 million people. That's a lot of people to contact in a short space of time, so they probably haven't finished contacting every customer.
What a nightmare.
Now, the PM has demanded the embattled telco cover the cost of replacing passports for affected clients. But beyond that, Annika, the federal government can really only fine the company $2 million. Is it time, do you think, for our cyber laws to be overhauled in this country?
Yeah, and that's something that our Minister for Home Affairs and Cybersecurity, Claire O'Neill, flagged this week in the Parliament when she was giving us all an update on the Omni shambles over at Optus. And I know in my patch, I look after aged care for the federal government. I'm worried about our older Australians. They're particularly vulnerable in this situation. There's millions of them. Some of them might not have even seen the email yet, Sarah. So I want to hear a lot more from Optus about what they're going to do, because it really has not been good enough.
Well, and perhaps they haven't seen the email because it hasn't even been sent yet. I mean, that's the problem we're facing, right? So many people are getting delayed information. Anna, the FBI is being brought in now to try and help us navigate through this. But do you think that sort of highlights our inability to investigate these things properly and adequately ourselves?
Absolutely. I think it's another piece of evidence which shows, you know, how shocked we have been by this and how, in a sense, caught on the hop everybody has been. As Annika says, particularly Optus. You know, Optus's response has been so slow, so shocking. People are highly distressed, and you know, the need to bring in the FBI certainly does highlight that. You know, and I agree. I think the pressure needs to be put back on Optus to pay for those passports, and they need to give the information to people to calm them down sooner rather than later.
And the part I don't understand either, and I don't know whether, Annika, you can shed any light on this, but I had a girlfriend of mine who was an Optus customer 10 years ago, received an email saying that her details, her date of birth, her address have all been hacked in this data leak. I mean, how on earth can this happen? 10 years? Why do we have information held for that long?
That's a great question that Optus has yet to fully answer for us, because some of the ways that they're required to keep information with respect to federal data and privacy laws, this has nothing to do with that. This is on them. And like I said, there's been some fairly basic breaches and they owe us all an explanation. Like you say, some people don't even know yet that they've been affected by this.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Anna, any friends of yours been affected?
Well, yeah, absolutely. My mum has been affected. And you know, my mum is an older woman, and it's been quite distressing for her because people don't quite understand, you know, what it means for them. You know, they think the worst, but really the truth is nobody actually knows. And that question of why Optus would still have people's details from 10 years ago, that needs to be answered.
Yeah, it's crazy. It makes you think about your own details and whether you were once an Optus customer too, right?
That's right.
G'day, it's Ali.
And Carl.
Thanks for watching the Today YouTube channel.
Subscribe now for brand new videos every day and exclusive bonus clips.
Ali, say please.
Please? Why?
Please. I don't know.